Welcome into Texans on Tap. I'm Brandon Strange alongside Charlie Palillo and Josh Jordan. You can go follow them on X at Palillo and at Josh Jordan SCS. On today's episode, there's no time to wallow in misery as Houston faces another tall task hosting the Niners on a short week. D'Amico says the Texans are rolling with who they have, but one guy they may not be rolling with is Nico Collins, as everyone waits on bated breath to hear updates on Nico and concussion protocol. Before all that, hit like on the video, sub to the channel if you haven't already, hit the bell for notifications so you know when new content drops, like when we go live, or at least attempt to after each game. Charlie, Josh, welcome in. So guys, I told you on the post-game show in the wee hours of Tuesday morning that I could already hear D'Amico Ryans say that they were in that Seattle game up until the end. They were just, one play away. And then he almost verbatim says it in the Tuesday afternoon presser. He went on to say that they are rolling with who they have. They aren't changing anything. And if anyone wants to blame someone, blame him. So that's not going to make anyone outside or inside, quite frankly, of the building at Kirby feel any better about the trajectory of this team. Or more concerning, I think, were Stroud's comments after the game. He said the offense they are running is, quote, death by 1,000 cuts. That's not a ringing endorsement of Nick Caley and the play calling. He, of course, took accountability as well, because he always does. Said he needed to do better, needed to find ways to get the ball to Nico more. We're getting to the point where I'm starting to wonder if one of two things, if not both, happen. One is either, Stroud puts his foot down again, allegedly, and demands more competent play calling, or at least a change at play caller. And or number two, CJ walks when his deal is up. And look, I know it's early to be considering the latter, but how likely do you think those scenarios are?
Starting quarterbacks very rarely move in free agency. I mean, the Texans would have the franchise tag at their disposal, a 1-year huge commitment, but could go there to lock him in for a season beyond the 5th-year option on his contract. So we're still 3 years away, conceivably, from a scenario where Stroud could walk. The second year of a franchise tag becomes exorbitantly expensive. And clearly, the offensive line is a joke. I'm not sure exactly what Stroud meant by the death by 1,000 cuts. But if competence is the issue, the Texans need a tourniquet because they're gushing competence completely out of their body. The O-line stinks. The running game stinks. And you know what? Yes, under constant duress is an issue, but CJ Stroud hasn't been very good either. His accuracy fell off last season from his rookie season. It's further deteriorated this year. Yes, he doesn't have a passel of wide receivers running free saying, throw it to me, here I am. But Stroud has missed multiple throws. He's had balls picked off. He's had at least a handful of other balls that could have or should have been picked off. An element of, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. The whole offense is a problem. There was a movie back in the 80s, young Kevin Costner, an actress named Sean Young, with a rather famous limo scene called No Way Out. That's kind of what it looks like for the Texans offense about now.
It does. It's actually a good movie, Charlie. I saw it recently. With CJ, I'm kind of thinking of his agent, David Mulligetta. And we know he's one of the most powerful agents. We all saw him get Deshaun Watson out of here. And Jalen Ramsey, he got moved. He's good at getting guys off of teams. And if I'm Mulligetta, I'm looking at the Texans and just going, I don't see this getting better. This looks like the same junk from last season when they went and laid an egg against the Jets. They really haven't been able to run the ball since then. They can't protect CJ Stroud. And then in the offseason, you draft a tackle in the second round. You don't even trade up in the first. You don't even pick in the first. You trade back when offensive line is that big a need. Plus, you already traded Tunsil, so you have a huge hole to fill. And then they just kind of grabbed some guys in the offseason. I don't think Nick Caserio and maybe D'Amico are taking it seriously enough how bad their offensive line is and how poorly they've performed. And I think maybe they mishandled the Joe Mixon thing. I think they probably knew earlier than we're aware of that he could not make it back or miss this much time. And all they did was take a running back that they traded up for in the draft, a guy that they consider a pass catching back, not even a bell cow. And then you sign Nick Chubb off the scrap heap. I don't feel like they treat the offense like it's as important as the defense. They're adding all these pieces to the defense when the offense is the big problem. So, yeah, Brandon, I think it's a big deal. If I'm CJ, I'm kind of thinking like, I don't see this changing. And if it doesn't change, then that means guys are going to get fired and then more coaches are going to come in. I'm going to have another, play caller. And I'm sure that's great. He'll probably perform better, but having to learn another offense this soon in his career, I could see why he's like, get me out of here.
2 follow-up points. Is not CJ Stroud much more Trevor Lawrence than Josh Allen at this point? CJ Stroud's not a quarterback I want to commit $55-60 million per year to, the way the Jaguars are now tethered to Trevor Lawrence for middle of the pack play. And CJ Stroud has been no more than middle of the pack for approaching a season and a half now. And as we talk about the presumed mega dollar extension, we need to include, fellas, in the discussion of this. This is supposed to be the window where the Texans are maximizing while they have CJ Stroud dirt cheap.
Yep.
He's not even $10 million on the books this year. Next season, he goes to 12, then the 50-year option will be somewhere in the mid-20s before you get to 40, 50 million plus. Defensively, Danielle Hunter, obviously, monster contract. Stingley's extension goes to 30 million per season. Will Anderson's extension, if you're going to keep him, is going to go to 30 million plus, the way the elite edge rusher market just mushroomed in the offseason. And the root cause of evil offensively is Nick Casario's consistent ineptitude with the offensive line. I mean, look at the Chicago Bears. Lousy for years. They took Caleb Williams number 1 the year after the Texans took CJ Stroud. The Bears aggressively in the offseason went and signed good NFL offensive linemen, not borderline starter and not even that level of performers that Caserio loaded up on, apart from his routinely botching first and second round draft picks on offensive linemen. And looky here, the Bears in a pretty ferocious NFC North, they're 4-2, and Caleb Williams isn't running for his life 2/3 of the snaps that he drops back. And coaching, you can only coach up stupid so much, it said. You can't turn lousy talent into great performance. But how about incremental improvement? Squeeze every drop of juice you can get out of it. Mike Vrabel, New England Patriots. Patriots trash the last 3-4 years, going through a couple of coaches post Belichick. And now Vrabel season 1, they're 5-2. Drake May, the new it boy among quarterbacks in his second season in the league. This is Casario's 5th year running the Texans. DeMeco Ryans' 3rd season as head coach. CJ Stroud's 3rd year as quarterback. And in 2025 season, they're doing a Usain Bolt sprint backwards.
Look, I think the Texans would be highly interested in extending CJ. But, Josh, you brought up the David Mulligetta factor. I think there's also a high risk that he agrees to that deal and then turns around and demands to be traded to where he gets the signing bonus and then sits out, and then Houston loses leverage. Now, look, it worked out for Houston last time with Deshaun, but do you trust Nick Caserio to get the better of a team in a trade? I don't. I don't. It would have to be one of those the broken clock being right twice a day things. Look, I guess in the vein of rolling with who they have, the Texans looked ill-prepared for Seattle after that long open week. So on a shorter week, what chance do you give the Texans to do any scoring against the 49ers, considering Stroud's biggest target's questionable and the run game has been non-existent against better teams?
Hey, well, the 49ers lost Nick Bosa to the season, torn ACL, their best defensive lineman. Maybe the best linebacker in all of football, certainly the best middle linebacker in all of football. Fred Warner, a gruesome ankle fracture. He's gone for the season. So if the Texans are under-talented because of lack of talent, at least they're getting a 49ers defense, which is under-talent because of absentia with the injuries. I mean, if Nico, though, is out with the concussion, I mean, where are you going to try to get plays offensively? So I would say the defense needs to generate turnovers and dominate and win the field position battle so the Texans aren't having to go 70, 80 yards for touchdowns will go 40, 50 yards and settle for Fairbairn field goal tries. Shorter answer is I don't see the Texans offense having a good game against the 49ers.
I don't either. I'm actually shocked that the Texans are favored in this game. They do play much, much better at home. So we know that about the Texans defense. So that must be what Vegas is counting on there. But I look back at the 49ers. They went into Seattle and held the Seahawks to 13 points and beat them. And we just saw what the Texans look like against the Seahawks. So that tells me, at least in the trenches, Niners are legit just like the Seahawks are on both sides of the ball. So Texans, defense great, offense just absolutely terrible. So I'm concerned because you say no Nico, then who's it going to be? Dalton Schultz had a big game, but boy, he was banged up going in and out of the game over and over again. I don't know how much you can count on that. Afterwards, after the game, D'Amico said Jalen Knowles our most explosive player, and he's excited about him. Well, then why did you make him take a back seat to Berrios in the return game and on the field? Berrios had more snaps than Jalen Knowles, and you were in a game where you were trailing and you needed offense, and Knowles makes some big plays, yet you're not prioritizing getting him the ball, but you're saying he's your best option to do anything. I saw way too often that game too, where it was just 4 wide, everybody go deep. We'll just do that over and over and over again. There was no design. I didn't see any screens. It's like they had no plan of action in that game. So that concerns me going up against the 49ers because they're no joke. And I bet Shanahan's just licking his chops looking at this matchup. And imagine what Shanahan thinks he could get done with CJ Stroud, like an actual great play caller. So I think the offense will be challenged. They can't run the ball. Without Nico, it's going to be tough. I think they're going to have to, if they pull this game off, it's going to be like 13-10 or something like that.
Yeah, it's amazing how, I don't know another word for it, stubborn Houston has been. You can't protect. So maybe just get some quick outs, just to keep the defense honest, but they don't seem to be able to make adjustments. Adjustments. They don't seem to have a competent game plan at all coming into these games here, like much less being able to adjust on the fly. I thought it was interesting that D'Amico said that, Stroud needed to tighten some things up and execute better, which I agree with. But I mean, he was pressured on 50% of his dropbacks. The guy was running for his life, has been running for his life for 2 seasons now. I don't think we're ever really going to know who CJ Stroud is as a quarterback until he can get some time to execute. Like, I understand you're not always going to have the luxury of a whole bunch of time, but at some point you've got to give this man some time to operate and actually run through his progressions. I do wonder if the David Carr effect comes into effect, where you just get hit so many times and you're just running for your life that it just, kind of ruins whatever talent's there. I'm not ready to say that with CJ yet, but my goodness. And so at this point, it's clear that the Texans are only going to go so far as their defense carries them, because you can't really count on the offense. So what do they need to do against likely starter Mac Jones and Christian McCaffrey to slow that offense down?
Turn them over and hope some of their home stadium, I don't want to call it magic, I'll just say results, where Josh Allen had basically the worst game of his career here. Justin Herbert was turned into like a 6-year-old boy during the playoff game here. One fun subset, the Niners' amazing left tackle, Trent Williams, 36, if not 37 years old now. He's best in the game. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, just a remarkable player. And you see how he gets downfield on running plays. The 49ers weaponry is challenged. Talk about their defensive losses. Brandon Ayuk is their big money number 1 wide receiver. He destroyed a knee last season, ACL, MCL, other damage. Not back yet, presumptively not back for this game. So it would seemingly be all about don't let Christian McCaffrey beat you. He's only averaging 3.5 yards per carry so far this season, but he has 53 receptions and has played every game. Right, McCaffrey, a little porcelain vase syndrome, 2 of the last 3 years, only played 4 games all last year. He's answered the bell each game. He's on pace for 129 receptions. So a featured element of the passing game, Shanahan offense, just like we've seen it here, Josh. Use of swing passes and screens and getting it to your most elusive back in space. McCaffrey is going to see the ball, and obviously he's much more athletic than any Texans linebacker.
Clearly. And that's what's so funny is the 49ers, when they played the Seahawks, they knew they'd have to make that adjustment, and they threw the ball to him a ton because they knew they were going to struggle to run the ball. That's what happens when you have a guy like Shanahan. And with the Texans, it's the complete opposite. I think for the Niners, outside of McCaffrey, you got Jawan Jennings you're going to have to deal with. He's one of their better receivers, but he's been so banged up. He said he's playing with like 5 broken ribs right now, a high ankle sprain, a low ankle sprain. He's got some incentives in his contract to where if he plays, he gets significantly more money this year. So he's trying to do anything he can to stay on the field. They've been using Kendrick Bourne on the other side, who had a couple big games, but then really didn't do much last week. He's been filling in because Ricky Pearsall has been out dealing with a PCL injury to his knee. He was a little limited last week. We'll see if he gets back this week. I'm not sure. It's been a while. He hasn't fully practiced in forever, so I wouldn't count on it. And if I'm Shanahan, I don't know if I want to bring him back against the Texans. I may not need him yet. The other thing is George Kittle, their all-world tight end, returned last week, and everybody was super excited that he was back. He didn't catch a pass, which was really shocking. So I bet that gets corrected this week. And we know over the years that the tight ends, elite ones especially, Travis Kelce in his prime, have really killed all the teams in the NFL, obviously, but the Texans in particular. So I think George Kittle, if it's not McCaffrey, he could be a factor in this one.
Yeah, I just think the secondary has to tighten it up. Stingley has to play like Stingley because it is obviously that the safety play has just been meh this season. Josh mentioned it. The Texans are somehow favored by 1.5 here. The total is sitting at 41.5, depending on what book you're looking at. Final thoughts and predictions for Niners-Texans.
Texans offensively were so freaking pathetic Monday night. The 49ers won at Seattle, as Josh alluded to. The 49ers won at the Rams. Texans 16, 49ers 13. Mac Jones forced implosion. Not a leap of faith. I'm not a guy of great faith in picking games, but the Texans, I don't know, a wild hair, desperation. Whereas the 49ers 5-2, part of a 3-way tie in that stacked NFC West, but just kind of a hunch. Where the sky seems dark and bleak and no parting of the clouds seems rational. Plus, I don't want the season to be functionally completed before the first week of November is in the books, right? A homestand, 49ers, then come in the 5-2 Broncos, then come in the 4-3 Jaguars. Texans have to win 2 out of 3 or they're deader than any Thanksgiving turkey we'll find.
I'll go 16-9 49ers. I feel like a lot of field goals happen in here, and nobody gets the field goal games on like the Texans seem to, especially at home.
Yeah, I know I picked the Texans against the Seahawks. I will not be fooled twice. I'm going to go 24-16 Niners. I just don't I think the team that's going to be kicking the field goals will be Houston. I just don't see how they put it in the end zone, especially if Nico can't answer the bell. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Guys, don't forget to join us live following the game on Sunday, either to celebrate a glorious victory and being back on the path towards the playoffs, or just come in and vent with us. It'll be cathartic, I promise. So for Charlie and Josh, I'm Brandon saying so long. Thanks for listening. And as always, go Texans.